I'm moving to Detroit and all my friends are like, you got to be kidding me.
Downtown Detroit is cleaner and safer than downtown San Francisco, which I thought I would never say in my life. Good job, Detroit. Look at these streets.
The most beautiful buildings we have in this city. And if we have a chance, we should walk inside a Tiffany's clock. If you were looking for something shady, this is where you did it.
This is one of the wealthiest places in the world.
Oh yeah, we invested $4.5 billion in the city. The Dime restaurant is probably one of like the best in the city. You have to go, like you have to go.
How would you say the race relations are here? What's it feel like for you? So this is a speakeasy. Someone just goes in here and drinks.
Yeah.
There's an authenticity here. It feels real.
Yeah.
Something about the Midwest, people just seem to be a little more cool these days, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Good morning, guys. When you hear of the word Detroit, what comes to mind? For most of us Americans, it's words like danger or blight. And while that does exist here, there is a very rough side, which I'll have a video on also. There is a downtown that is having a comeback, a renaissance, if you will. So today we have the great pleasure to meet up with a long-term local who's gonna show us and tell us about exactly what's going on in the big bad, notorious D, Detroit. How you doing? Thanks for meeting up. Appreciate it. Peter. All right, guys, so we have the good fortune to meet up with Greg, and you've lived here 22 years?
Yeah, 22 years, since 98.
Okay, so Greg has seen the transformation of downtown Detroit, and he's gonna bring us into what he's seen. Also, you're an employee at Chrysler, right?
That's correct, Stellantis.
What do you do there?
I manage supplier diversity for Stellantis.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah, you've got several buildings kind of in this area that are actually very, very iconic. You've got this building, which is called the Cube. It's a white building designed by Albert Kahn, who was historically, even in the early 1900s, one of the most prolific architects in the city. Everywhere you go,
this building right here.
This big white building. It was one of his more modern buildings.
This tall one.
Yep, this white one right here.
Oh, right.
It's called the Cube now, but it was the Chase Bank building. It's been a bank building. Like super unique about it, this is the financial district of the city.
Okay.
And if we look around, just this particular spot,
right?
You got One Detroit Woodward, which was the tallest skyscraper in Michigan. The Guardian Building, which is the one
with the flag.
Yeah, with the Art Deco on top.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Is one of the most beautiful buildings we have in this city. And if we have a chance, we should walk inside.
You're in love with the architecture here.
I'm in love with the city.
When did it really start turning around here?
About 2010. Right, almost right after 2010, 11, and then like after the bankruptcy.
So 2009 down here was not that cool.
I mean, you're asking me. I thought it was cool. I was still hanging out here, so
it had some edge. It had some stuff going on. Right?
We had the Super Bowl, and everybody was like, "It's coming back," but it was like the Super Bowl and like nothing else around it. But most people who are in modern cities would have seen that and like, this city isn't coming back. But all Detroiters, if you ever ask them, the city was great then. One really important thing is to note is like part of the resurgence of the city was also built upon lots of outside investment coming to the city.
Okay,
and
who's the big investor here?
I would say the one that has had the most impact on the changes in the city is Dan Gilbert, because he came in, he bought tons of these skyscrapers and decided that we're going to do something with them. This was the Dime Bank, and became the Dime Building. The Dime restaurant is probably one of like the best in the city. So if before you leave, if you want breakfast, you have to go. Like you have to go. Like I guarantee you have one of the best breakfasts you've ever had.
At least the very downtown is clean.
Yeah.
We're 2021. This is a reality. Downtown Detroit is cleaner and safer than downtown San Francisco.
Which is wild to think.
I thought I would never say in my life.
Yeah, it's wild to think.
I had this thought, Detroit is just blown up downtown, basically.
Oh.
In San Francisco, I have a bitter breakup because we moved out of it. My heart is there, but it's just the city's going in the opposite direction of what it should be doing.
All of these buildings inside Capitol Park were Section 8 housing.
For those that don't know, what is Section 8 exactly? A brief description of what is it? What does it mean?
What I know of it is, you know, government mandated low-cost housing. And it not only was it that, many of the buildings were uninhabited, so squatters lived in them too. So those that weren't Section 8 were also, you know, just lived in by artists. Even in this area, you really didn't come into this area because, you know, this was, if you were smart enough, you realized that nothing good was happening in this area. Literally turned off of the street. I had never been down the street until probably 10 years ago, and I've lived here 20 years. If you were looking for something shady, this is where you did it.
Look at that building.
Yeah.
What is that?
This is the book tower.
That is beautiful.
The book tower was one of the tallest buildings in the city. The one we're in, it's topped by a copper roof. It was uniquely featured in, like, you know, blaxploitation films in the 70s, which is kind of cool to know about it. But it is a beautiful, iconic building. The architecture outside of it is just absolutely stunning.
The sponsor of today's video is Cuts Clothing. In pretty much every video I make, I'm wearing a Cuts t-shirt. Now Cuts has served up a winter collection of clothes including bomber jackets, vests, and very comfortable fleeces. What I absolutely love about Cuts is the quality of the materials, attention to detail, and longevity. There is nothing worse than repurchasing a piece of clothing after 10 washes, and that is not the case with Cuts. No stretching or fading going on here. The great news is that you can receive 15% off your next purchase if you use my discount link below. That's right, 15% off your next order with my link below. Now back to the video. Talk to me about, like, where are the homeless people for a downtown American city right now?
Yeah.
I've seen a few,
yeah.
But you can't set up a tent or anything, right?
No. Like, you actually see less here than you see in places like San Francisco and other cities that I go to.
Not comparable. Not comparable.
I mean, there's a lot of support. I mean, Detroit has been through so many phases of, you know, up and down. We have a very huge support network for, you know, it spans the gamut from young women to young LGBT kids to older veterans to, I mean, there's a lot of support for the homeless population here.
So if someone sets up a tent, like they would be able to in San Francisco, in many parts of the city, a cop comes in, a city official, who comes in and says, what do they do exactly? They move them to a home? Outside?
It's almost like those people realize they don't need to, because there's a lot of support places outside of the city that they could go to. If you're a young homeless girl, you go to Alternatives for Girls. If you are a young LGBT kid, you go to a place like Ruth Ellis Center. If you are a veteran, you go to Paquette Place, which is just north of here. And there are residential spaces for these people, not just.
Are they filled up?
To my knowledge, I know. If we talk about, you know, places like Ruth Ellis Center, they're growing, so they're building more space. Alternatives for Girls, when I first moved here, one of my best friends was working there, and she helped build their building, so they have tons of space there. You know,
I've been here a week. What can I say? I don't know anything. I've felt the downtown. I've enjoyed it. But you're doing something right, where the city's being managed compared to most cities in a better way right now.
You know, a lot of people will say that this is an example of gentrification, right? But the reality is these buildings were built here prior to what happened with the city. And there has to be some real sense of responsibility to the people who are living here, and what do you do with them if you displace them, right? So I think the city itself has been really smart about that.
Maybe we could send the city officials from San Francisco here for a little tough love, some training. To see, you know, you can't just let everyone set up tents here. That you know, someone with a drug problem, just putting them in a hotel room alone probably isn't the answer.
And you know, you also have to have support of the corporations here too, and they are all committed to doing that type of work.
The one through line through all American cities right now, you can see, is mental health issues. Because I'm traveling a lot, and the solution isn't just housing, it's multifaceted. People need therapy, right? A lot of therapy. Some people need to be removed from the streets because they're a danger to others. you need education, you need job training. Some people don't want to work.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
complicated.
yeah.
But
Without question.
but
And
but I see it everywhere, and it's increasing a lot.
it would be impossible to say I've never seen it in the city.
Of course.
But it's not as prevalent as in other cities that I've been to. And I've traveled all over the U.S. quite a bit. So
You travel a lot with your work?
yeah, I mean, not just with work, just in general. Like even during the pandemic, I was doing road trips. So I mean, it's like one of the few things you could do, and I love cars. So I was like, okay, a reason to drive somewhere.
So and you came to Detroit for the opportunity.
Yeah.
You came here because you wanted to be in the automobile industry.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, for me, as a kid, I would see, cars like the Viper go from concept to reality. So, I mean, it inspired me to become an engineer. It made me want to work in. Oh yeah.
And I mean, were we around the same age?
We might be. I'm 47.
I'm 44.
So, yes,
so the Dodge Viper was huge.
Yeah. It was huge, and it happened so quickly. Like it was almost like a year that it took for them to go from concept to reality, and that used to never happen. Like concept cars were concept cars, and that's it. But so as a function of that, like as a kid, I wanted to be, I thought be an engineer. I can go anywhere from there. I was also technically smart, so I was like, all right, let's go, and went to one of the best schools in the country and graduated and was like, I'm moving to Detroit. And all my friends were like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you got to be kidding me. But to me, this was, where my dreams were made. So I moved here. I didn't know anything about all of the socioeconomic issues like cities like this experience. If there's a baseball game or basketball game, hockey game, performance, the theaters, the major artists are now coming back. I was here probably 3 weeks ago, packed full of people. So it made it kind of cool to see the city actually at a point where it's starting to like come back.
Starting to breathe.
Yeah. Actually 7 in the city right now. We've walked past
7 what?
Speakeasies.
Underground bars.
Yes.
Like you have to have a passcode or know someone or have a knock.
You just need to know where they are and get reservations. This is will be one of the newest structures in the city. It is commissioned by Dan Gilbert, obviously, but it is where the Hudson building actually physically stood. It was where the cream color building is there, and here is where the Hudson built.
What's it going to be?
It's going to be kind of a multi-use complex. But what they did was absolutely incredible. It's literally like blanketed with street art. It is.
We're going there?
Yeah, it's and there are bars, restaurants, pizza places, and you quite frankly want to hang out there. This street was actually built to drive Model Ts out to Pontiac, which at the time was one of the most northern cities of Detroit. I mean, you also had GM that was out in Pontiac also.
Right.
But along here you have, major brands. You have Nike, you have H&M, you have Under Armour.
This is one of the wealthiest places in the world.
Oh yeah, and the street we just walked off of, which is State Street, was one of the busiest streets in the world, just from foot traffic, people crossing the street. Yeah, Detroit is the new black.
What does that mean?
It's a new brand in the city, and it's everything in black-owned business.
Okay.
A new brand in the city. I mean, you'll find a lot of people have branded Detroit, and if you're a resident of the city, you kind of love that actually happening. That Detroit itself, if you brand it, that means you're proud of it, right?
How would you say the race relations are here? There's been a turbulent past, late 60s, obviously.
Yeah.
How about now? What's it feel like for you?
There is, what's unique about Detroit is that in the city, I mean, it's so multicultural. You don't really feel, race as strongly as you do. Now, as you go to other parts of the country, you feel a little like I've always told people that, in the city, you don't even feel black, right?
Okay.
Although I am and proud of every bit of it.
Sure.
It's just like that's not something that is thrown into your face,
Yeah.
But and I think that's largely because the population and the people are all very, very multicultural.
There's an authenticity here. It feels real.
Yeah.
Something about the Midwest, people just seem to be a little more cool these days, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And then it's, look, growing up, don't you remember Detroit, Halloween? Those houses were on fire. And
Right.
was like torching Detroit.
Right. Like that was literally a thing. Like even when I first got here, it was kind of falling off, but it was a thing, and you were like,
you're like, that place is a no-go zone.
Yeah.
Then you're like, Mom, I'm moving to Detroit.
Devil's
She's
Night.
like,
Devil's
all right.
Night. It took me a minute to remember what it was, but yes, it was Devil's Night.
Right.
So the Metropolitan Building was at one point, vacant, right? They came in, they cleaned it up, and it's now a Westin Hotel. But at the top is one of the most beautiful views of the city that you'll see. Street art is a major thing in the city. You'll see it everywhere. This is Aries. He's a street artist out of Spain.
Okay.
But if you look at this piece, this was done before all of this development was happening in the city. So this probably...
When did this part of the city come around?
Probably about 3 to 5 years ago, right? So just recently, like this structure probably, if you look at it, it's the Shinola Hotel. So within the last 2 years, all of this has come in here.
Okay.
If you've ever seen the Diego mural, which is in the DIA, which we kind of talked about,
Right.
It takes influences from that. So
Detroit Institute of Arts.
Detroit Institute of Arts. Yes.
I went in there the other day to meet someone.
Yeah.
We ended up hanging out in the cafe so long that the museum closed.
Oh man, cafe is cool though. It's like right in the middle of the museum. This is Queen's Bar, one of my favorite bars in the city. Some of the best drinks. It is so low profile, but anytime you come here, you are hard pressed to. Bars have like an identity. It's like, this is the black bar, this is the gay bar, this is that bar.
Does it have that yet?
It doesn't. And that's like, you will see people of all stripes, colors, everything in that bar.
Good job, Detroit. Look at this. Look at these streets.
Man.
Buff.
Wait until this is kind of if you go to a game, Comerica Park is just on the other side of these buildings. Ford Field, where the Lions play, is just on the other side of these buildings. You've got where the Pistons now play. They were in Auburn Hills, but they moved downtown.
Okay.
And also the Red Wings, our other sports team, are all within like a double block area.
All your stadiums are downtown.
All of them are downtown.
Not in the burbs.
Not in the burbs. This is the belt, like I was saying before. When I first moved here, they were talking about, we're gonna turn an alley into like, a place where people, party. And I was like, okay, well, this is Detroit. So, are we really gonna do, it's a city. Like, you turn alleys in New York into bars and people hang out. Yeah. But what they've done with this space is absolutely incredible. Here is totally cool. It's an art gallery.
Wow.
So you've got Deluxe Flux, which is a bar, and if you Google it, it has all of these like neon colors. So imagine a bunch of like magazine or cartoon colors all over the walls in highlighted green, yellows, and reds. And so if you Google it, you'll see that. Again, street art is extraordinarily prevalent just in this alley. But in the parking structure behind you, they've also commissioned, like even the walls. If you look, step back and you look.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys can see that.
All the way up to the second floor, you have street art that has been commissioned inside the parking structure, right on the belt. So like, street art is huge. It is.
You got a lot of security guys down here. A lot of security guys, a lot of community cleanup people types.
Yeah, and so that was, part of the challenge with, managing safety in a city is like you have to have enough of a police force to do that. And the unique thing about what Dan Gilbert did when he came in, he was like, I'm just gonna hire security people. And while I don't think that was one of his folks, it was also kind of a testament to saying, we recognize that there are needs the city at the time could not satisfy. So we have to support that with, I need to support that with places or with resources like that. And it's kind of an open air bar. You come down here, you just, you have drinks, you party, you kind of do those things. This is a speakeasy.
Can I say that?
I guess you can, but yeah, it's...
Should I blur it out? I'll blur the name out.
Yeah. And so
this is a speakeasy. Someone just goes in here and drinks.
Yeah.
It's like a bar inside.
It is actually a bar, restaurant, has top-notch drinks.
What's the business model to that? People feel like it's exclusive because nobody knows about it, or?
It's like if you're a city resident or you know and you've hung out in the city long enough, you know about places like this. It doesn't say I'm a bar on the outside. And those who know about great drinks, great food, know that it exists and they go
Are they
there.
a little more lawless inside, or
No, not at all.
Like a normal
They just
restaurant?
call it a speakeasy because it's not like I'm branding my bar like, you know, Cherry's bar. One thing I think the city could do to improve is that it's news, talk about some of the more positive things. But news is what people want to consume, right? So when people are, people want to hear about all the negative stuff going on in the city. This is one of Albert Kahn's most, like, this was the theater district. And it's an Albert Kahn design theater, and also was considered one of his, wildest designs.
Are you guys redoing this?
No, they're going to tear it down.
Oh,
That's
They're gonna
unfortunate.
move it to another location.
oh, they're moving it.
They're moving it.
They're not tearing it down.
Ah,
We're
thankfully.
just taking some of the loose stuff off.
Yeah,
And we're going to net it, and then they're going to tear it apart.
move it.
How you feeling about Detroit these days?
Detroit's coming around. It's a lot nicer than it was 5 years ago. Look at the growth.
Yeah,
I'm digging it.
They're building new stuff everywhere.
yeah.
So Greg, what I'm seeing through and through here is pride in the people and the residents of Detroit. Whether
Yeah,
that be
man.
the construction worker,
Yeah,
the
man.
cop, I've talked to a few of them,
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Like,
It's-
explain this pride.
It is.
And it
So-
can't be said for everyone, obviously, but I'm feeling it.
Yeah, well, obviously, but like, what is, and this will be with anybody you meet from Detroit, outside of Detroit, right? There is such a bad rap for Detroit. Everybody knows about that bad rap. Like you
Right,
said when you
right,
got here, you're
right.
like, all I hear is just bad stuff about Detroit.
Yeah.
And that's because all you hear is bad stuff about Detroit.
Yeah.
But when you are a resident of the city, or you're a resident of this area, when people talk poorly about Detroit, your natural reaction is, you clearly have never been to Detroit. You defend Detroit because you know it is a bad rap. It's not
Yeah.
reality. Like,
Yeah.
so when you're here, you experience all. Like, there's so many new restaurants opening in the city
Yeah.
of all different types of cuisine, from Lebanese to Polish to Italian. I mean, you just name them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep up. And not just food that you grab after drinking at the bar. I mean, these are,
food truck scene here.
the food truck scene is off the chain. Like,
the chain.
straight up off the chain. Like Eastern Market, like, you go there and there are food trucks everywhere. And I'm talking some of the
I saw a
food,
bunch of broken chains.
some of the food trucks here
Can we walk by these?
are straight fire. Like,
Okay.
there's some that are straight fire. Like, if you're walking downtown at night, you know, when people are just kind of partying outside, the food trucks are actually parked all in different spots of the city.
Yeah.
This Mac menu is pretty dope.
House of Mac.
Yeah.
Mac and cheese.
Oh yeah. And then Big Bo's is pretty good too. They're all pretty good, but I mean, these are just a small, like, not even a small sampling. This is just like a polka dot in the middle of an ocean.
Isn't that the old GM building? Or what is that now?
Yeah,
Is
so
that GM?
it is GM's world headquarters, but the interesting story is it was built by Ford. Let's go to the Guardian building.
Yeah, let's
I
go to
literally,
the Guardian's one of the nicer buildings.
Yeah, I have to show you this building.
Okay.
Like,
So guys, we are in the center of Detroit,
Yep.
as many of you know, but I
Yep.
just want to make that very clear. This is the center.
Yeah.
There are different neighborhoods in Detroit. It
Oh, yeah.
actually is, land mass wise, it's quite a big city.
yeah.
And so this is one story.
Yep.
I'm going to do another video
Yeah.
out in a different part of Detroit.
Yep.
That's another story. Both are true.
Yeah.
Both are the reality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
No
sort of
question.
how all this stuff works.
I mean,
Cities
with
have good parts and bad parts.
I mean, without that level of yin and yang, you living in a world of, false reality, in my opinion. But
You're in the Truman Show.
yeah, exactly. So the Buell building was built nearly about the same time as the Guardian building,
We're
but
going to go in here, right? This is the Guardian.
yeah. But if you see, like, it has all of these limestone facades. It has, the placements of individual figures within the building.
Some of my international audience will see this video and say, hey, nice city, where are the people?
Right. Well,
So COVID.
Wednesday, middle of the day.
Wednesday, middle of the day.
You come here on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for brunch. There are tons of people and tons of great food. And
But that tells it right there. If someone wants to spend their off time downtown, that means it's in a good place.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah, totally. And
usually people are trying to avoid downtowns on the weekends.
I have tons of international friends, and all of them who come here have this idea of what Detroit is and literally do not want to go home after they spent a week or a month. Oh, easily, because it's so beautiful. And once you see Detroit, then you also get to experience Northern Michigan, which is, equally as beautiful. It's unbelievably beautiful.
You're the new Chamber of Commerce. Right? Selling this place.
I have friends from the suburbs. They're like, hey, we wanna have like a day downtown. Can you help us out? I'll literally plan weekends for them. It's literally covered. It is probably one of the most beautiful interiors I've seen. And there's some really cool things about this building too. So you notice like the Art Deco style.
Love the Art Deco style.
And
everything down to the details in the doors.
And one of the most beautiful lobbies I've ever seen. So it's covered in Pewabic pottery, and I think there's actually another brand, I think it's called Rockwood, but less commonly known. But all of the old estates in Detroit, and even like the smaller family homes, all had Pewabic pottery on their fireplaces. And this entire lobby, when I first moved here, was it looks like it's pottery, but it's not. It's actually painted, right? And I was like, man, I wish I could have seen it when it was original. But this is original, actually. If you notice in this space, like a cavernous lobby like this would typically like have all the reflection. You remember we were in there and it was a lot of reflection of sound because of the pottery, hard surfaces. So this one has like canvas with horsehair behind it, and it's painted.
Whoa. Horsehair?
Horsehair. So so that's why you don't hear any sound. You don't hear the reflective sound.
Wow.
You notice that, right? The whole idea was a bank building. So like you'd have tellers throughout here or action happening throughout here, so basically it would have been reflecting sound all over the place.
Right.
But you don't have that right here. So this clock is actually a Tiffany's clock built into Manel, which is a metal that was created and specifically used here because it's non-corrosive. This guy was so particular about creating this space. He even was designing like the linens or the attire of the people who worked here. Like the linens on tables look like every detail was thought out. The style of the tile, the glass that was all created. When this building was built, it had some of the first automatic elevators, which actually the technology to have automatic elevators, which is what we all know today. You press the button, you go to your floor, and it let you off.
Sure.
That didn't exist when this building was built.
Okay.
So it had to be created specifically for this space.
And so how are the automakers doing here right now in Detroit? Is manufacturing coming back at all or not really?
Unique about, the work that, we are doing as a company. We invested $4.5 billion in the city. So a part of that resurgence, right, is telling people that we're coming back, right?
Okay.
And so auto companies, I work for Chrysler Stellantis, but we've made more investments in the city than I've ever done. So we built a new plant now and created 3,500 jobs. That's just us. Okay. But if you think about all the suppliers that need to support that, those are those high-paying jobs? 3,500? Are they manufacturing? What are they exactly? They're manufacturing jobs. They're, they can provide the basis for people who want to have a family. They provide you benefits beyond what you can get in other places, and you're supported throughout your working career. So that's what would bring this city really back, is more manufacturing back in. Fair to say? Right. It is the first plant, and I believe it was 20 or 30 years, new plant in the city of Detroit. Right at Jefferson and Connor, right, is where every Grand Cherokee in the world is made. That's great. So it's before I used to think, I don't care where something's made. Yeah. I'll buy the cheapest, made in China. Who cares? Yeah. Now I'm seeing what's going on in the country, and when you go to cities like the outskirts here, the countryside where the manufacturing has left, people are struggling,
and there's no replacement for them.
Right.
A lot of people, the replacement is opioids, you know?
Right,
Because there's
man.
no meaning. You
Yeah.
can't raise a family.
Right.
What are you going to do? Not everyone's built to code.
Right.
You know?
And the sad part is, right, that trend was going on for a very long time in our country,
Yeah.
you know? And it, you know, it takes companies like, you know, the one I work for that makes investments, and it takes the city to make improvements that are necessary.
So someone would want to live down here now.
So somebody would want to live down here.
Yeah.
People want to live down here. Businesses want to come back here. I mean, and you know, part of, I think, our strategy is that it's corporate responsibility, right? I work in supplier diversity. The reason I do that is because I want these businesses that are creating opportunities for the community. Like, I can give money to someone easily.
Yeah.
Greg Hawkins can do philanthropy, right?
Okay, yeah.
But my little dollars don't go as far as corporate dollars can go in this effort.
Yeah.
It's to me like, you know, that whole idiom, you can teach a man to fish and he can feed his family.
Yeah.
In supplier diversity, is a totally different game, right? We are teaching that man who already knows how to fish, how to market and sell that fish,
Okay.
so he can then feed his community.
Okay.
So it's a totally different game.
I'm seeing it now. I never connected the dots before.
Yeah.
And doing this work has led me into many situations where I'm starting to see, like, look, do it in a clean way, remanufacturing way, do it back in a clean way.
Yeah.
But what do you expect all these people to do now?
Man.
Like, what, in their towns are hollowing out. Like,
Right.
what are they supposed to do?
Right.
Just
Right.
live off some welfare or something?
And
what?
and that's, you know, that whole strategy, like, oh, we're gonna move business, we're gonna move manufacturing, where it's, when those people are disenfranchised, right? You create all of these negative things that
Yep.
you then have to police. When in this case, you're creating communities that
It's all tied together, right?
Yeah.
Like the nodes are all
Yeah.
separate but tied
Yeah.
together. And you go downtown, any U.S. city, mental health issues.
Yeah.
Maybe someone doesn't have employment.
Yeah.
Maybe family structure is a big thing too.
People
That's
are-
a whole nother topic. but
big time. But you know what? That, like I said when we started this thing, I talk about how, you know, this city has for a very long, as long as I've lived here, had a very good strategy on approaching how do we deal with some of the issues the city has experienced, because we've gone through it for so long, right?
Yep.
You've done it for so long, you start to get some street cred on how to deal with social issues.
Yep.
And the city has, in my opinion, does it very well, depending on the audience or the group which it needs to support.
and then it's tied into community,
Dude,
schools, safety, mental health.
dude,
It's all one thing.
I mean, and if you think about, you know, like what's prison do in our country, right? It's supposed to rehabilitate people, but then when they get out, right, they can't find a job because they've been in prison, right? Once you get out of prison, what do, right? If you can't figure out a way to survive outside of that, you do something to get back inside, right? Just realistically speaking, right? So there are companies that I know that I work with
Yep.
who are community companies, and they hire people like that,
Cool.
because their goal is really to give someone an opportunity to rehabilitate themselves.
What's the name of one of those companies?
Ideal Contracting. It's a super cool company. I met the dude and it was like, I've never heard of that kind of opportunity being given to people. This is the Detroit River, and as you can see on the other side is Canada, the Canadian flag. It is also south of the city. So one of the few places in our country where Canada is actually south of the United States.
That's a mind flip, huh?
Yeah, and this river is kind of, you know, coolly historic in that, you know, during Prohibition, right?
Yeah.
It would freeze over. So
Okay.
you know, it wasn't, you know, alcohol was still legal in Canada, so they would drive it across the river. They'd pull it over the river. There are like special characters, like one dude called the Gray Ghost, who we commemorate now with a restaurant in the city, who used to be like a prolific, you know, mover of alcohol across the river. Like even during periods where, like, you know, there was the automotive industry, there's been, you know, the metal stove industry.
Yep.
Now, and you know, that's one piece, right? But
Yeah.
then even cooler, like, this is one that I think is super interesting. So we're close to Canada. You know, Canada has, you know, our history has had issues with, you know, slavery issues like that, right? Well, because we were so close to Canada, you know, slaves who were trying to get to freedom, this was one of the places that they would cross in the Underground Railroad.
Oh, you had Underground Railroad
Oh,
stash houses.
Yeah, and homes, you know, even in the city and even outside the city, things like that. So this was one of those places that they would escape to freedom. So it's kind of neat to see.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, that was awesome.
My
Thank
pleasure,
you.
man.
Thank you guys for coming along. Maybe a
Yeah.
perspective of Detroit you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Love your passion about Detroit.
My pleasure, man.
It's a beautiful thing. And city officials in cities like, I don't know, Los Angeles, San Francisco, maybe take a trip out here.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot from these people.
They sure could, my
From what
man.
you're doing here. All right, guys. Until the next one.